There are truths that remain hidden for decades, waiting for the exact moment to reveal themselves. In the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, where coffee plantations stretch across the hillsides and the aroma of roasted beans mingles with the morning mist, a man was about to discover that his entire life had been built upon an act of love so profound that it demanded the most painful sacrifice a mother's heart can make. Michael Harris had grown up among the most fertile coffee farms in the region, his hands weathered by work and his pride rooted in belonging to a family respected for 3 generations. Everything in his life made sense, everything was in its place. Until one afternoon, while organizing old documents, he found something that would change everything forever. A letter written in trembling handwriting with stains that looked like dried tears. The words he read would shatter all his certainties, but they would also reveal to him the most beautiful truth about maternal love. This is the story of a man who had everything and discovered he was missing the essential knowledge. This is the story of how the past can illuminate the present when we have the courage to face it. This is the story of a mother who loved so much she was capable of saying goodbye forever. Welcome to this journey through the mountains, through sacrifice, and through the kind of love that transforms generations. Stay with us until the end, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Harris Ridge Farm stretched across the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia like a living testament to 3 generations of work. Raymond Harris had inherited these lands from his father and transformed them into one of the most prosperous coffee farms in the region. Michael Harris, his 32-year-old son, had grown up breathing the aroma of coffee beans. He had studied agricultural science, but his heart never left the mountains. For 32 years, Michael never questioned his place in the world. He was a Harris, son of coffee farmers, heir to a tradition. His future was clear. But destiny had other plans. It was an October afternoon when Raymond asked him to organize the family documents. Michael worked in the study, sorting through old papers and yellowed photographs. At the back of a cabinet, he found a carved wooden box he had never seen before. Inside were intimate keepsakes, and at the bottom, a sealed envelope with the name Michael written in faded ink. Michael's hands trembled as he opened that envelope. Inside was a letter in feminine handwriting. To my beloved son, if destiny ever allows you to read this. My name is Eleanor Morgan, and I am your birth mother. The woman who carried you in her womb but could not raise you. The woman who loved you so much she had to give you up so you could have the life I could never provide. I was born in a small Appalachian town. My father was a day laborer. My mother washed clothes for wealthy families. We were 6 siblings and hunger was a constant companion. At 15, I went down to the valley to work as a housemaid. My wages supported my younger brothers and sisters. But I had a gift. I could sew quilts like my grandmother taught me. I met your biological father when I was 20. He was a law student, son of merchants. He promised me marriage. I, who only knew hard work, believed every promise. But when I told him you were on the way, he disappeared. His family fired me from work, and I found myself alone, pregnant, penniless. You were born in December, on a cold rainy day. You were perfect. I named you Michael because it means who is like God. I tried to raise you for 5 months. I worked whatever jobs I could find, but barely earned enough to eat. I watched you grow thinner and weaker each day, and my heart shattered. It was a social worker who told me about Raymond and Isabel Harris. A good couple who couldn't have children. They had a prosperous farm, could give you schooling, a future, opportunities one could never offer you. My son, the decision to give you up was like tearing out my heart. The day I placed you in Isabel's arms, something in me died. But I knew I was doing the right thing. The Harris family was generous to me. They gave me money to start over. With that I returned to my town and opened a quilting workshop. I have worked all these years, taught other women, lived. But I never married, never had other children. My heart remained with you. If you ever wanted to find me, Raymond has my information. I just want you to know, every day I have thought of you. Every quilt I've made carried my prayers for your well-being. You are my son, Michael. You always will be. And my love for you has been the light that has guided me through darkness. With all my maternal love. Eleanor Morgan. Written in May 1993. Michael read the letter 4 times. His hands trembled. The The words blurred before his wet eyes. For 32 years he had known only one mother. His entire identity had crumbled. With the letter in trembling hands, he went to find his parents. He found them on the porch where they always drank coffee at sunset. "Father, Mother," he said in a broken voice. "I need you to explain this." Raymond dropped his cup. Isabel brought her hands to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. "Michael, my son," Isabel whispered. "We never wanted you to discover it like this." What followed was the most important conversation of their lives. Raymond and Isabel told him the whole story. How after 9 years of being unable to conceive, they had decided to adopt. How they met Eleanor, a young mother struggling desperately. "When we met Eleanor and saw you in her arms," Isabel said, "it was love at first sight. You were so small, so fragile. But what moved us most was Eleanor herself. She was someone who loved you desperately and was making the most painful decision possible to save you." "Why didn't you ever tell me anything?" Michael asked painfully. "When you were a child, we thought you were too young. When you were a teenager, we feared confusing you. And when you became a man, we were afraid of losing you," Raymond confessed. "We were afraid that if you knew about Eleanor, you would leave us." "That could never happen," Michael responded. "You are my parents in everything that matters. But I also need to know Eleanor. I need to know where I come from." "The last news we had was 3 years ago," Raymond answered. "Her health had deteriorated. Lung problems from years working with fabric dyes. She lives alone in her town. I have the address. Town of Bluemont. Her workshop is called Eleanor's Quilts. But Michael, prepare yourself for the possibility that she may no longer be alive." "I know," Michael said. "That's why I need to go now before it's too late." The following days were emotionally stormy for Michael. He reread the letter every night, imagining Eleanor's face. During the day he worked in the coffee fields, but his mind was elsewhere. 4 days later, Michael announced his decision. "I'm going to find Eleanor Morgan. I need to meet her, thank her, understand my story." "I'm going with you," Raymond said immediately. The next day they began the journey to Bluemont. It was 3 hours on winding mountain roads. During the trip, Raymond shared memories. "Eleanor came every 6 months during the first year to see you from a distance. Once I found her crying behind the trees. She told me, 'I just wanted to see him one more time. I just wanted to make sure he's okay.'" Finally they arrived in Bluemont, a traditional Appalachian town. In the town square they asked for Eleanor Morgan. An elderly woman pointed to a sloping street. "The workshop has been closed for years. Eleanor still lives in the house next door, but she's very sick." They followed the directions to a small clapboard house. Michael stood paralyzed in front of that door. His entire life had been a road leading to this moment. "Breathe, son," Raymond told him. "Whatever you find, remember we traveled here out of love." Michael knocked on the door. A woman about 35 years old opened it. "Good morning. We're looking for Mrs. Eleanor Morgan." "My name is Michael Harris." The woman studied them. "I'm Lucy, Eleanor's niece. She doesn't receive many visitors." "What is this about?" "It's a personal and very delicate matter. We would prefer to explain it to her directly." Lucy considered the request. "Aunt Eleanor has had a relatively good day. She's awake. But please be brief. She tires very quickly." She let them in. The walls were covered with exquisite quilts. Lucy returned minutes later. "Aunt Eleanor will receive you. Please, don't upset her too much." They went up to a room filled with light. In a simple bed, propped up on pillows, was Eleanor Morgan. She was 58 years old, but suffering made her look older. She was extremely thin, her white hair in a braid. But her eyes shone with intensity. When Michael entered, those eyes fixed on him. For eternal seconds they looked at each other. And then Eleanor's eyes opened enormously. Her trembling hand went to her chest. "Michael," she whispered. "Is it you, my boy?" "Yes. Mama Eleanor. It's me. I came to find you." Eleanor began to cry. She extended her weak arms. He crossed the room and knelt beside the bed. The embrace lasted minutes. Mother and son cried together. 32 years of separation condensed in that moment. "My boy," she repeated between sobs. "My beautiful boy. I knew that someday you would come." When they separated, Eleanor studied Michael's face. "Let me look at you well. You're more handsome than I imagined. Tell me, my son, have you been happy? Did you have a good life?" Michael took Eleanor's fragile hands. "Yes, Mama. I had a wonderful life. The Harris family raised me with love, gave me education opportunities. But I always felt something was missing, and now I know it was you." Eleanor smiled. "Then I made the right decision. It was the most difficult of my life. But I knew it was right for you." During the following hours, Eleanor shared stories. She told him about her family, her childhood, about how she had learned quilting from her grandmother. She showed him old photographs. Michael studied each image, discovering physical resemblances. Michael told her about his life on the farm, about his education. With each detail, he watched Eleanor's face light up with maternal pride. "There's something I need to tell you," Eleanor said seriously. "The doctors have told me I don't have much time left. Maybe weeks." "Don't say that, Mama. We're going to find the best doctors." "No, my son. I've lived 58 years. And now, before I depart, I got to see you. I can leave in peace. I don't want to lose you now that I just found you. Michael, you're never going to lose me. I've lived in your blood for 32 years. Now you'll live in my heart forever." Eleanor took Michael's face in her hands. "Promise me important things. Promise me you'll be happy, that you'll form a beautiful family. Promise me you'll honor Raymond and Isabel, but also remember where you come from." "I promise, Mama. And promise me that when my time comes, you won't be sad for too long. You'll remember that we found each other, that we could say everything." "I promise." Eleanor smiled with peace. "Then I'm ready for whatever comes." The goodbye was emotional. Michael promised to return the next day. "Go in peace, my son," Eleanor told him. "This old heart is eternally grateful." During the following 2 weeks, Michael traveled to Bluemont every other day. They were precious encounters but painfully aware of their brevity. Eleanor's health declined visibly. Michael brought her photographs of the farm. Eleanor studied them with fascination. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "It's exactly the kind of place I imagined." He brought her a fine wool shawl. When Eleanor saw it, her eyes filled with tears. "It's more beautiful than anything I've ever quilted." During these visits, Michael met other members of his biological family. Everyone received him with genuine warmth. "Your mother always spoke of you with pride," an older uncle told him. Eleanor spoke to him about Michael's biological father. "Your father's name was Robert Sanchez. He was the son of merchants. For years I hated him for abandoning us. But over time I learned that hatred only poisons those who carry it. As I heard, he married, had children, lived comfortably. I don't know if he ever thought about us. Do you want me to find him?" Michael asked. "No, son. That would only bring more pain. Robert is irrelevant to your story. The only thing that matters is that you were born." As the days passed, Eleanor's health deteriorated dramatically. The doctor confirmed the inevitable. It was a matter of days. Michael settled into a Bluemont inn to be close. Raymond and Isabel also traveled. The final conversation occurred on a rainy dawn. Eleanor had awakened with surprising mental clarity. "Michael, come closer. There's one final thing I need to tell you." Michael knelt beside the bed. "I've had a hard life, my son. I knew poverty, abandonment, loneliness. I made mistakes, made desperate decisions. But if I had to live my life again, I would make the same decision to give you to the Harris family. Because seeing you now, knowing the man you've become, knowing you were happy, that's worth every tear I shed. It wasn't in vain, Mama. Your sacrifice gave me life, opportunities, a future. And I'm going to honor it." Eleanor smiled. "Then I can leave in peace. Promise me one more thing. When you have your own children, tell them about me. Let them know their grandmother loved them before meeting them. I promise, Mama. Your grandchildren will know your story. Eleanor closed her eyes. I'm so tired. I think it's time to rest. Rest. Mama. I'm going to stay here with you. Thank you for coming to find me. Thank you for closing the circle. Those were Eleanor Morgan's last coherent words. During the following 12 hours, she drifted in and out of consciousness. Michael never left her side. He held her hand, sang softly to her, whispered words of love. Eleanor Morgan died at dawn, when the first rays of sun illuminated her face with golden light. She died in peace, surrounded by love, after having found the closure she had longed for. Her last breath was so soft it almost went unnoticed. Michael held his mother's hand several minutes after her death. Tears fell uncontrollably, but they weren't only of pain. They were of gratitude for having had the opportunity to meet her, to thank her, to close a circle that had been open his entire life. Eleanor Morgan's funeral was held 3 days later in the small church of Bluemont. Michael organized everything carefully. A noble wooden casket, fresh mountain flowers, a service celebrated by Father Matthew. The church filled completely, revealing how many lives Eleanor had touched. There were her relatives, but also the dozens of women she had taught the art of quilting, the families she had helped. Eleanor Morgan was a woman of extraordinary courage. Father Matthew began. She knew pain, poverty, loneliness. But she never became bitter. Eleanor's greatest act of love was giving her son up for adoption to ensure him a better future. This sacrifice required courage that most of us will never have to demonstrate. She taught us that true love doesn't retain but releases. Michael had asked permission to speak. My name is Michael Harris. For 32 years I lived without knowing that Eleanor Morgan was my biological mother. I grew up in privilege, raised by a wonderful family. Just 3 weeks ago I discovered the truth, and I had the blessing of finding Eleanor before it was too late. Eleanor taught me that true love is measured by what we're willing to sacrifice. She loved me so much she was willing to live without me so I could have opportunities. That is the purest love that exists. Now it's my responsibility to honor that sacrifice. Mama Eleanor, rest in peace knowing your son will honor you every day of his life. Your sacrifice was not in vain. Your love will live on. After the service, the procession walked to the cemetery on a hill. Michael had decided Eleanor should rest in Bluemont. He had a marble headstone made. Eleanor Morgan Rivera, 1965 to 2023. Artisan of blessed hands. Mother of immense heart. Woman who loved so much she was capable of renouncing her own happiness for her son's well-being. Her sacrifice was the seed that bore fruit in blessings for many families. Rest in the land she loved. In the following weeks, Michael stayed in Bluemont settling Eleanor's affairs. He paid medical debts. He discovered the workshop contained dozens of quilts Eleanor had never sold. Michael organized an exhibition with all proceeds going to a fund to help young women learn artisan crafts. During those weeks, he spent time getting to know his biological family. His uncles told him stories about his grandparents, humble farmers who had maintained their dignity in poverty. Your grandfather used to say that a poor man can be richer in honor than a rich man in money. A month after the funeral, Michael returned to Harris Ridge Farm. But he was not the same man. He carried a profound transformation in his understanding of who he was. The following months marked significant changes. Michael implemented an improved housing program for worker families. He established an emergency fund for medical and educational expenses. He created a profit-sharing system. But the most significant change came with the establishment of the Eleanor Morgan Scholarship Program, an educational fund that provided complete support for young people from poor rural families to study. Eleanor sacrificed her life so I could have education, Michael explained. Now it's my responsibility to ensure other young people have the same possibilities. The program began supporting 5 students. Michael planned to expand it gradually. Raymond and Isabel watched these changes with pride. Michael is becoming a bridge between 2 worlds, Raymond reflected. Eleanor gave him visceral connection to the difficulties of common people. and Michael began to think seriously about the promise to form a family of his own. It was during an agricultural fair in Richmond, 8 months after Eleanor's death, that Michael met Patricia Wells, an agricultural engineer specializing in sustainable coffee cultivation. She was 30 years old, daughter of teachers from West Virginia, and had earned her master's degree through scholarships. Patricia had returned to Virginia to help small producers. She was practical, intelligent, passionate, with genuine commitment to rural development. Michael met her during a conference. Her presentation impressed him deeply. "I'd like you to visit my farm," he proposed. The first visit was professional. For 2 days, Patricia toured the coffee fields, analyzed systems, interviewed workers. Michael accompanied her, fascinated by how she related to the laborers with genuine respect. At the end of the evaluation, Patricia included observations about labor practices. "Mr. Harris, I was deeply impressed by the way you treat your workers. What motivated you to implement these practices?" Michael decided to tell her the complete story. The discovery of the letter, the reunion with Eleanor, how that experience had transformed his understanding. Patricia listened with growing attention. "That's one of the most beautiful and painful stories I've heard. The fact that you transformed that discovery into concrete action says a lot about your character. Please, call me Michael. I'm just trying to honor the sacrifice my mother made for me." That conversation marked the beginning of a relationship that evolved from professional to personal. During the following weeks, they talked about life philosophies, values, visions about rural development. Michael discovered much in common with Patricia. "My father used to say that true privileges are those you conquer with effort and use to help others," Patricia told him. "That's why I returned to Virginia." The courtship was respectful. Michael invited her to dinner, showed her the scholarship program project. Patricia felt attracted to his authenticity. The relationship deepened when she met Raymond and Isabel. "Patricia is exactly the type of woman Eleanor would have chosen," Isabel commented. 8 months later, Michael proposed to Patricia in the Bluemont Cemetery, in front of Eleanor's grave. "Patricia, I brought you here because I want to ask you to marry me in my biological mother's presence. Eleanor taught me that true love is the most powerful force. I want to build a life with you based on that love." Patricia accepted with tears. "Yes, Michael. I want to form with you the family your mother dreamed for you." The wedding was celebrated 1 year after the discovery of the letter. The ceremony included the coffee farming community and representatives of the biological family. Lucy brought a quilt embroidered by Eleanor that Patricia wore during the celebration. Raymond gave an emotional speech. Michael has found a way to honor both the family that raised him and the woman who gave him life. His marriage represents the integration of different worlds under common values. Isabel added, "Eleanor, your son is getting married today to a wonderful woman. You would be very proud." 2 years later, Patricia gave birth to their first child, a boy with expressive dark eyes. They named him Raymond Elliott Harris Wells, combining recognition of the adoptive grandfather with a tribute to Eleanor, Elliott as a middle name honoring her. The birth marked a new stage. Michael experienced the paternal love Eleanor had felt, and viscerally understood the magnitude of the sacrifice. "Now I understand why it was so difficult for Eleanor to give me up. I can't imagine separating from Raymond. The love I feel is so intense that giving it up would destroy me." Precisely why her decision was so heroic, Patricia responded. Michael became an involved father. He sang traditional songs learned from Eleanor's family, told him about his 2 grandmothers. When Raymond turned 1, the tradition of taking him to Bluemont Cemetery began. "Son, here rests your grandmother Eleanor, a brave woman who loved your daddy so much she gave him up so he could have a better life. Thanks to her love, you exist." 3 years later their second child was born, Isabel Patricia Harris Wells. The 2 children grew up hearing stories about their grandmothers. Michael established a tradition. Every year on the anniversary of Eleanor's death, the family traveled to Bluemont to visit her grave. The Eleanor Morgan Scholarship Program had grown significantly. What began supporting 5 students now benefited more than 25 young people annually. Michael organized a special ceremony each year. "My mother was a seamstress who barely earned enough to feed us," a young graduate shared. "Without the program, I never could have studied. Now I return to my community to serve." 15 years after discovering the letter, Michael Harris had become a respected figure. Harris Ridge Farm was a model of agriculture balancing productivity with social responsibility. But more important was the family Michael and Patricia had built. Their children had grown with profound understanding of their social responsibilities and unconditional love. Raymond, now 13, showed talent for agricultural management. Isabel, 10 years old, had begun learning quilting with former students of Eleanor in Bluemont. Both children proudly carried both the Harris surname and Eleanor Morgan's story. On the 15th anniversary, Michael organized an exhibition titled Threads of Love, The Legacy of Eleanor Morgan. The centerpiece was a monumental tapestry created by 20 former students, 10 feet high by 12 feet wide, visually telling the entire story. During the opening, Michael gave a speech. "15 years ago, I found a letter that changed my understanding of who I was. Eleanor Morgan taught me that true love isn't measured by years shared but by the willingness to do what's right for those we love. Her love survived 32 years of separation. But Eleanor taught me something more. That love has multiplying power. Her personal sacrifice has become a blessing for hundreds of families. The most important message is this: we all have the power to honor those who gave us life by living in a way that our lives multiply the love we received." After the speech, he brought his children before the tapestry. "My children, someday you'll inherit this farm. But more important than inheriting land or money, you're inheriting a story and a commitment. The story of your great-grandmother Eleanor teaches you that we all carry the capacity to make extraordinary sacrifices for love. The commitment is to use whatever privilege we have to help those who didn't have the same opportunities." The children solemnly promised to honor that legacy. That night, Michael walked alone to the farm shrine where he kept a photograph of Eleanor. "Mama Eleanor, 15 years have passed since I found you and 12 since you departed. I've kept all my promises. I formed a beautiful family with Patricia. We have 2 wonderful children who carry your name and your story with pride. The scholarship program has helped more than 100 families. Your art lives in the hands of the women you taught. But more than any achievement, I want you to know, thanks to you, I learned that true wealth isn't measured in acres or money, but in lives touched, in families strengthened, in love multiplied through generations. You planted a seed more than 40 years ago when you made the most difficult decision of your life. That seed grew into a tree whose branches now give shade and fruit to hundreds of families. And it will continue growing long after I too have departed. Rest in peace, Mama. Your son kept his promise. Your sacrifice was not in vain. Your love is eternal." Michael walked out to the porch and headed toward the house where Patricia and the children waited for him. The full moon illuminated the coffee fields with silver light, and the night air carried the sweet aroma of coffee blossoms. For the first time in 15 years, he felt the circle was truly complete. There were no more unanswered questions, no more unprocessed pain. He was a man who knew his story completely, who honored both streams of his heritage, who had transformed painful revelations into actions that benefited others. He was the son of Eleanor Morgan, the quilter who loved so much she was capable of renouncing her own happiness. And he was the son of Raymond and Isabel Harris, the coffee farmers who had raised another's child as if he were their own blood. But more than any definition, Michael Harris was simply a man who had learned that love is the only inheritance that truly matters, because it's the only one that multiplies when shared instead of dividing. And that was the lesson he would transmit to his children, and they to theirs, in an infinite chain of love that had begun with the sacrifice of a humble quilter in the mountains of Virginia. This story reminds us that the true value of a life isn't measured in years lived or wealth accumulated, but in love shared and sacrifices made for the well-being of those we love. Eleanor Morgan lived a life marked by pain and poverty, but her decision to give her son up for adoption to ensure him a better future was an act of love so pure that its consequences blessed entire generations. Michael Harris learned that true identity doesn't come from the surname we inherit but from the decisions we make and the values we choose to live. He learned it's possible to simultaneously honor multiple heritages without betraying any, that the human heart is large enough to love 2 mothers in different but equally profound ways. The true lesson Eleanor leaves us is this: that sacrifice made for love is never in vain. That seeds planted with tears produce harvests of blessings that feed generations. That true love doesn't possess but releases, doesn't retain but gives, doesn't demand but gives without expecting anything in return. May we live in such a way that when our time comes to depart, we leave behind not just properties or money, but multiplied love, transformed lives, and planted seeds that will continue bearing fruit long after we've been forgotten. If this story enjoying you and reminding you that life's true treasures are love, sacrifice, and the dignity of honest work, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel by activating notifications to receive more inspiring stories from the countryside and from life. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that a mother's love transcends any circumstance. And tell us in the comments, what would you do if you discovered a secret like this about your origin? Now stay with us as we continue sharing stories that touch the heart and honor the strength of working people everywhere. Thank you for your support, and may God bless your path.